Okay, today I'm going to be going on r/DeltaruneDiscussion. I'm going to be looking at theories, and I'm going to be seeing how likely they are to be true, and giving some of my own thoughts on them. Okay, so we got anagrams: Asriel Rousey, serial murderer, as well. Chris's Risk, although I don't really get Risk for Chris, but yeah, if you put an F there, it becomes Frisk. Susie is Issue. Yeah, it's like you can't. Not everything's gonna be an anagram, as is pointed out here. Okay, so this one reads, so a few days ago I came to a weird realization. The similarities between Samson and Metaton. I'm sure I'm not the first one. But still, I don't see a lot of talking about it. Probably because it's not important. Yeah, not really. I think it's just that they both use the Neo machine, and the Neo machine is created by Metaton. The Metaton. So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there's a special neutral ending. If you kill everyone but then Metaton, and they become king, I believe. What happens? Wait, what? There's a special neutral ending if you kill everyone but Metaton, and the thing is basically Snowgrave, or rather what would have happened if Christian stopped Phantom. The gist of events is Metaton mind controls everyone that love him. Some people resist, but they quickly disappear, and he establishes. Okay, I have not. I have not seen this neutral ending. Yeah, that does sound like mind controlling people to love him, and then controlling the masses does sound like a Spamton thing to do. To be fair. Yep. I think maybe it's just that they're similar characters, so he's drawn a bunch of similarities between the two characters. Papyrus doesn't appear at Deltarune because he's always inside, because he's just got so many followers. That's my new headcanon. Okay, so this one is saying, what if the human silhouette in the prophecy is not Chris? There's a similar theory about Rousey, that the Prince of the Darkness should be Lancer, not Rousey, and he just wears the hood to look like the character from the legend, because realistically he shouldn't even be a prince, and he's obviously very suspicious. But yeah, I don't think they'd make the human silhouette in the prophecy not Chris, just because I feel like that'd be a bit predictable. After they did that in Undertale, I don't think they'd just pull I don't think Toby Fox would just pull the same thing again. Boom Oliver, this guy, was saying that he thinks that the Gaster in Deltarune is the same one from Undertale. And I hate to break it to him, but it's literally called another him, not the same him. It doesn't work. Also, it's saying that the main idea is that he's saying that it wouldn't make sense to leave Gaster's story from Undertale unfinished and just have another Gaster, and that Deltarune is supposed to be the continuation of Gaster's story from Undertale, which is definitely wrong. Like, Gaster plays a key role in the game, but the game isn't about Gaster. I mean, Toby Fox has made it like abundantly clear that Deltarune is its own game. So I don't think he'd then make the whole reason for the game's existence, the whole idea of the game just being its continuation of Gaster's story. But also, like, even if it's not the real Gaster, it can still contribute to Gaster's story, either because it's a similar Gaster and has a similar story, or because if you believe the theory that the soul was passed from Undertale to Deltarune, then those Gasters, the two Gasters, would be, you know, in communication with each other and working to the same end goal, and thus it wouldn't matter anyway. So yeah, I don't think it really makes sense that this is the same Gaster, because the name of the song that plays in the very beginning of Deltarune highly contradicts this. So this one is saying Sweet Cabin Cakes did not beat Gaster, and that is true. People have said that that he's meet Gaster. I believe he said, but it's just Rules Card and Spamton that he talks about. He never talks about Gaster. That's what this is saying here. Okay, so apparently the reason why people thought this was because they say it's a man they could barely understand, which aligns with Gaster's like wingdings talk. And blueprints. But yeah, they can barely understand it because it's rules card. Oh wait, is this one? Yeah, this one's talking about rules card. It would make sense. He talks at different moments. One time he talks about Spamton, and then another time he talks about rules card. But yeah, and the blueprint. These are just blueprints for getting into the mansion. These aren't any Gaster blueprints. They're not. It's not like that. Oh no, they're the ones used for the trash machine. I thought they were to get into the mansion. Yeah, exactly. It's not Gaster. I knew that. Yeah, why didn't we get a Scooby-Doo style chasing Queen's Mansion? We should have. I would have rated that. Okay, so this series titled, I just realised, don't forget describes the roaring. When the light is running low and the shadows start to grow, similar to when Rousey says, when the light is subsumed by shadows. Yep. Don't forget I'm with you in the dark, which makes sense because Rousey says lightness are lost in eternal light. And also it makes sense with what we know about Rousey, because to get to the internet dark world, the only way is to go up from the closet dark world and into the library, because unlike in chapter 1, there's no door that leads there. People have said that the Great Door can take you to any dimension, but I believe there's text if you interact with it after it closes, says like you don't think it'll ever open again, which highly contradicts that. And also it's literally the door that connects the closet and the unused classroom that we can see from the unused classroom. But yeah, so he must have went into the light world and then been able to travel, meaning he must still be able to stay in form in the light world. So it would make sense that he wouldn't turn to stone in the event of the roaring. So it would make sense that he'd be with us in this eternal night that Rade describes. Yeah, this person thinks sunk by Toriel or Susie. But also, as I said, it could also be Rousey. And obviously Rousey knows about the roaring and such. Plus, it's a very significant character, so it makes sense. The "you're in the game's dialogue" is referring to Chris, not the player. I actually think it's both. If I remember, the dialogue with "your", because it says like you're gonna do something when you the player is going to do something. But it also says like your brother Asriel and you the player do not have a brother called Asriel. I doubt that. So I'm pretty sure it's inconsistent. Also, brackets. Oh my god, there is no consistency in the bracket. There's a video by Andrew Cunningham that describes this, but there is literally no consistency. I was looking at it for a theory recently, where, because I hypothesized that Asriel was present in the Soul and Undertale, I was looking for if maybe some of the bracketed text was supposed to be Kara versus some of it being Asriel, but no. Kara uses both, and also there are lines that Kara says that are in brackets that are like no different grammatically from the lines they say that are not in brackets. So there's literally no consistency. It's really annoying. Yeah, I don't know really what this story's getting at. It's very confusing, to be honest. But it's saying that every time the game says you, it's referring to Chris. It doesn't really make sense because because there are very specific instances of it using you, and it very much referring to the player, not Chris. I mean, for example, whenever it says you did this, whatever, you actually did that. Yeah, so this is really weird. This is what this user is pointing out, is that there's a Rudin outside the dojo in Chapter 2 that refers it to whatever you put your name is in the vessel creator, as that being the name of the town. And it's very confusing, because as far as we know, only the voice that speaks at the beginning, probably Gaster, and us, should know that name, maybe Chris too. But this Rudin definitely shouldn't. And I mean, I don't think there's anything special about this Rudin. I think that, if anything, Rousey probably told the Rudin that it's called player name town. So I think Rousey knows, and that's what's weird, and that's what's suspicious. And clearly Rousey knows more than he lets on. Okay, so this first paragraph is saying that it doesn't make sense that there's been harmony between light and dark for 1,000 years, since it doesn't really make sense that these dark fountains would have been around that long. That seems a very long time. Especially since, besides from the closet fountain, Rousey describes the unused classrooms fountain as newly popping up. So that doesn't really make sense. And even for the closet fountain, 1,000 years just seems like a long time. I don't even really think the school would have been like around for 1,000 years. But yeah, there's lots of weird instances of this kind of stuff in Deltarune, where the Darkness have history despite literally just being created. They have like this whole life they've lived out, despite their existence only having lasted for like a minute since you got there. It's very confusing and very mysterious. Okay, this one is talking about how Chris sets up for Chapter 2 by what they do in the end of Chapter 1. This one talks about how they ate the pie, and thus in Chapter 2, Susie needs to make a new pie, Susie and Toriel, which gives Chris enough time to go into the bathroom, take their soul out, and then slash the tires. Also, another thing Chris does is they plug in the TV ready for what I can assume is going to be a TV Dark World in Chapter 3. In the first chapter. Which we know because in Chapter 1, if you inspect it, it says, oh, it's not plugged in. But then immediately, first thing in Chapter 2, it says that it is plugged in, which means Chris must have done that. Also, in Chapter 2, you can find money in Asriel's drawer, although, which doesn't really make sense that Chris would put money in Asriel's drawer unless they're maybe trying to test the morality of the player to see if they take it. But also, Asriel's drawer is really weird since it's also like specific based on what save file you're in, and it's the only thing that is specific like this for what save file you're in. There are no other differences other than Asriel's drawer. So Chris says, "Great to see you again," or the player does. And Sans is like, "Oh, that's weird because we've never met before." So that kind of makes it clear that that it's specifically talking about the player and Sans in Undertale that they're referring to here. And I've seen it pointed out that it implies a pacifist timeline, because the player is being nice to Sans and such. But I also see it as being like, if the player did genocide, saying, "Oh, great to see you again," it would be kind of creepy and kind of like a taunt. To be honest, I think it could work that way as well. But yeah, so this one's talking about how Sans' door obviously looks like the fast travel doors in Deltarune. And basically what happens, if you don't know, is that when you enter Sans' room, it's all dark, and you walk around, and then you eventually get to a point and the lights turn on, and it turns out you've been on a treadmill. Although that doesn't really make sense, since you could literally see yourself moving, like not just staying in the same place. And also you can move in, 4 directions, which treadmills don't go in. And I've seen this definitely, this like black space that you see when you enter Sans' room, definitely being compared to the black area that we see in the closet, because similarly, it's like oddly just infinite, like the dark space in Sans' room. And obviously Sans has been compared to darkness in many ways, so there's definitely a connection there. It's me, I posted this. I'm going to talk about it. But yeah, when you use the Shadow Crystal, when you use the Shadow Crystal in the Light World, in Chapter 1, it says you could not see your hand. And I noted that Jevil says, "In the shadow of the knight's hand," and if Chris's hand is see-through, then it shouldn't have a shadow. So I think that's just a little hinting way of saying that Chris is not the knight. Because, yeah, I don't feel it really makes any sense that Chris could be the knight. When you consider stuff like the fact that the door was closed and that this would make most sense to be done by the knight, and like Chris was inside, so they couldn't have closed the door behind you when you go into the closet. So that's what I'm saying. I think this is supposed to be a hint. This little message is supposed to be hinting at the fact that Chris is not the knight, since obviously it's Chris's hand is see-through, then it shouldn't cast a shadow, and supposedly the knight's hand does cast a shadow. I think it's supposed to be symbolic of that, but then admittedly, shadow crystals are see-through and cast a shadow, so I don't know, but Chris's hand isn't a shadow crystal, okay, it doesn't apply. Aaron? Aaron Yeager? Anyway, I'm bored. I'm gonna stop filming this video. Goodbye. Please like and subscribe.